How's it going? Today I'm changing out the alternator on my 2011 Toyota Highlander. It's got the 3.5 liter V6. The alternator is right down here. To get to that, I've got to remove the battery and this duct in order to get the fan shroud out. In order to do that, I'm going to have to drain the radiator down. I'm going to just dump it all because I'm at 200,000 miles. I'm going to go and replace the fluid in there. We got to remove the lower radiator hose along with the thermostat housing. So I also have another thermostat. You have to remove the serpentine belt down here. So I got another serpentine belt for that one. And then once all this is out, we can take out the bolts we need on the alternator, remove it out this way and up. Something I forgot I got to do is remove this top plastic shroud, and it's all these little pressing keepers. So to get these up, this one had a little space so you can get like these little flat heads in there. Pop it up. I heard that one break. So one of the ears broke off that one. I do have some replacements that I can do that. But like these smaller ones, you can't really get the flat head. Heck, they might all break, so they may need some new ones anyways. But you can pull them out just like that with a pick. With all those removed, and take this plastic piece up and off. Let's go ahead and set it on the ground over here. So I've got my drain pan down there. I need to open the actual catch of it. On one side or the other of the radiator, there should be a little thumb turn that you could get to with either your fingers or pliers to drain the fluid out of it. But I'm going to start off up here. I'm going to disconnect my battery, get that out of the way so I can get this air duct out of the way. And all the battery is, you start off with your negative. It's a 10 millimeter on this one. Doesn't take a whole lot, but once it's loose, you just pull that up and off. Make sure it doesn't touch while you're doing the positive side. That popped right off there. Whoop. Alright, so once you have those disconnected, all we need to do is take off this bracket here. This is also 10 millimeter up here. I'll have to get a deep socket for that side. I didn't have a deep 10 and 3/8 for some reason in my kit, but my 1/4 inch had one. I'll go ahead and remove this top bolt here. I did loosen that one up. I'm going to put this bolt right back in there so I don't lose it. And I'm actually going to put on gloves in order to touch the battery. Alright, now that I've got my protection on, I did loosen this nut up over here. It's actually on a rod, and it should, correct, there we go. Spins out of the way, and you can pull it up. See how it's got, see how it's got that little hook at the bottom? So we can actually pull that up and out, just like that. Go and set that up there. For now, grab this, comes out of the battery. I'm going to take this, set it over here, out of the way. And now we can lift the battery up and out, just like that. And I am trying to get this done a little quick today because we're supposed to be in triple digits in the weather. So now that the battery's out, if you can see right down there at the very bottom, there's that little twist on that I was talking about. And it looks like I'm going to have to pull off the lower plastic underneath it in order to get the room to drain. Otherwise, it's going to go all over the place. Next up, we're going to remove this air vent here. You got two 10 millimeters, and it looks like it just pulls off of the air box there. All right, got these two bolts out. Got this moved over so I can screw them back in. We've got a wiring harness and some vacuum hoses that run through this. So just pull those up and out of that groove. I may get some pliers to pull in the ears so we can press that out. May have to do this two-handed. Yeah, I'm gonna have to put the phone down and do it two-handed. Okay, that one's out. Got one more on this other side here, this white one. All right, now that all those wires and vacuum hoses are off, this can pull up and out of there. And we've got this lower one to actually unbolt. Now that this one's unbolted at the top, I screwed that one back in. You got one bolt down here underneath the battery tray that just lifts out. So undo that one, screw that back in a little bit. And this is attached underneath the box there, so you can pull it down and out. And this one also has a couple of vacuum lines connected to it. Just like that. All right, for this front shroud underneath, we've got a bunch of these little screws here and bolts right there. So it's just this front piece that I think that needs to come off. These are also 10 millimeter. So there's 4 of those bolts up front, 4 on the back here, and then over here on the driver's side, you can see in there, there's the drain and the little knob that you turn right there. So this is where we're going to drain the radiator. Open the drain, make sure this little part's open, and make sure that we're lined up underneath the drain. Now we can come in through the top here, reach down, twist it open. Well, it wasn't seized. Go ahead and crack this so we got air coming in. Do not do that with a hot system. I just moved the car in. It's not hot, but it was pressurized. That's why it spat at me. You just have to keep turning this until it opens just like that. So if you come down here, you actually see the fluid. Line it up so it goes right in there. It is a little dark, but it's not really bad like I thought it was going to be. So we'll get new fluid for this. Alrighty, while that's draining, I'm going to work on taking this bracket off. Do not break this line. This is for your AC. So just take one screw there, one bolt here, and we'll remove this metal bracket. Now that we have the bracket unbolted here and unscrewed, we got to bend this ear up a little bit to get it off this hose. You could bend it out of the way like that, but I'd rather have it completely out of the way to give us the most working room. All right, I've got that bracket bent out of the way, and see that bends really easy. Got it taken off. We're going to work on unplugging these connectors here. You push this connector in just a hair, push down on the top, and it comes off just like that. These ones are on the bottom, I believe. Alrighty, I finally got them off. That was kind of a bear. But if you can see on the bottom, you push in on that one there. You push in on that one there. So push them in further. I had to actually use a screwdriver to kind of push up on the button. Be careful not to break that. and then I was able to pull that off. Next up, I'm gonna remove this top radiator hose, unbolt the fan shroud, that way we can lift it up out of the way. All right, top radiator hose is loose, and something else that we can move out of the way is this plastic cover on top of the engine here. Lift that up out of the way. All right, now that we've got the plastic out of the way and the hose, we can remove the fan shroud. There's 3 bolts, one right here, one right here, and one on down here on the other side. And then it pulls out and up, and we'll rotate it this way. All right, one more thing we got to remove before moving the fan shroud is this little overflow connection for the radiator. And you should just be able to get some pliers on here to break it loose like that. And there's little crusties on it, and you can just work it off just like that. And now we're ready to flip this out of the way. I was able to flip this up out of the way. I did have to take the overflow bottle off. It's just 2 10mm on the front side here, and then it lifts up and out. I also had to unclip some of these wiring harness ears. Next up, we're going to disconnect the lower radiator hose, and I'm going to disconnect it down there since I could get to it. This is draining off a little bit, so I'm going to shut that, move my catch can over here to do the radiator hose, then we won't have any fluid left over here. Okay, I've got the bottom clip off, and just to break those loose, you can take some kind of pliers. I like these ones because they got some teeth for grip, vice grips. You don't want to break the hose, but you kind of go around it and just wiggle it back and forth, and that breaks it loose without ripping the hose. That's what I meant. Don't tear the hose. So you just work it back and forth. Then let's see here. I've got the couch can down there, but it's still probably going to make a mess. Just like that. Now, remove the top clip, take the bottom hose out of the way. Alright, got this clip off. I don't know if there's going to be any more fluid coming out of here. Nope, no fluid came out. Well, maybe a little bit, but it's not bad. Cool. Next up, we got to remove the belt, the serpentine belt, take off the idler pulley, remove the thermostat housing, then we can remove the alternator. We've got some wires and stuff on the alternator to take off as well. This is a 14mm on the tensioner pulley. I've got the actual bar for doing serpentine belts. Be careful when you do this though, because this is going to want to tension towards the front and your AC lines right there. You push back to release the tension on it, and then when you let go, it's going to want to come back like this. So I may actually try and do one more tooth that direction. And the order for the belt, you want to look at that before you remove it. Mine goes over the alternator, under the idler pulley, around the water pump, around the tensioner pulley, down around the crankshaft pulley, up around the AC pump, and then back to the alternator. And once you remove the belt, you got to double check it with the belt you replacing with. I recommend doing that, and maybe the thermostat while all this is apart. I'm doing thermostat, belt, and alternator. My belt tool was too long and kept hitting this. No matter which way I got it, I'd either bottom out here or bottom out on this before I lost tension on it. And if that tensioner has a bolt hole, I can't see it from here. So I just have one of my long 14mm I'm going to use to get the belt off. Got the belt off. I got the idler pulley off. It's also a 14 millimeter. And you're going to have this spacer right here. Do not lose that. You are going to need that. Finagled the belt out of there. Now, I can only tell there's 2 bolts on this thermostat housing. One you can see right here. The other one, we're going to need an extension. You go in right above the alternator pulley, and it's tucked up underneath here. And I'll have to see what size those are. They are 10 millimeter. They're just nuts. The studs are in the housing down there. You can see it right there. And this just falls right off. We'll go and set that out of the way, and I'll put the nut back on so I don't lose it. Now that I've got the thermostat housing out of the way and everything, we're going to go ahead and disconnect the wires from the alternator here. You can pull back this boot. There's going to be a nut on that one. It's going to be a bolt right there. And it looks like this one on the back here. Okie dokie. I've got this bracket on the top of the engine pulled off. Unbolted this bracket from here. Pulled the boot back. Unbolted it from there. This attachment has a boot that you pull off. And then it's just a press in, depress it, and then come out. And now I gotta find where all the bolts for the alternator are. And those bolts are right here. And right there. They're 14 millimeter. I was looking it up and I couldn't get this to budge. So on the underside here, if you see the dipstick tube here, there's going to be, let's see if I can get, there's a bolt for a bracket that goes to the bottom of, right about there. It keeps on unfocusing, but that bolt there is what we have to undo for the bracket, I believe, and that's what's hanging us up. Alrighty, I got that bottom bolt out. I just laid it on the ground and I was able to reach it. It is a 12 millimeter on that one. And these are the other bolts. This is the top one. It's a little bit longer, 14 millimeter. This is the bottom, the lower front bolt, and it's shorter, 14 millimeter. Just take a flat head. I had to figure this out before I told you, but take a flat head on this back side of the top bracket here and just pry down. I've got it, the top loose, and we'll just wiggle it out of there. All right, I found one more thing. This wiring harness right here runs down to the bottom right of the alternator, and right down there's one of the little trees where the wiring harness connects to that bracket that we just took off. So I'm going to pull that out, and then the alternator will be free to come out. It's already free off the bracket, so that's all that's left. That was kind of a pain, but I got that off. Now let's just lift up and out of here. So I can do this with, no, I need 2 hands. It's out. Here's that bracket that I was talking about, and that's where the wiring harness clipped in. This is a 14 millimeter. We're going to take this off, put it on the new alternator. Now that we have the bracket bolted onto the new alternator, I'm going to change out my thermostat, which is poking out right there. Just pull that out, put the new one in. I looked at the thermostat. These don't look the same. It said this is an OEM replacement, but I don't trust it. The other one has a bunch more gaskets and stuff in here, and just real sketchy about this one, so I'm not gonna put that one in. I reused the old one. It looks okay to me, so if I have problems, I'll just redo it then. Alrighty, I've been fighting this bottom bolt for that bracket that the wiring harness went to for quite a while now. Something that you can do, though, that I've had to do, take just a paper towel, shove it in your socket. Now it'll still pop out of there, but it'll it won't just fall out when you're trying to put this bolt in. And that's what I've been having issues with, is just keeps wanting to fall out of my socket. That lower button bolt was a pain. I just struggled with that for about an hour because I dropped it. Don't drop your bolt. But I snugged that one up, snugged these two up here. I was looking for the specs. I couldn't find them offhand. If I could find them, I'll put them up on the screen right now. But I snugged these pretty good with 3/8 14 millimeter. So I'm going to do the thermostat housing next, the pulley, put the belt on, and then I can start reassembling. All right, I've got my 10 millimeter with my second nut for the thermostat housing. I got the bottom one on. Make sure your thermostat is seated properly in there, otherwise this won't connect right. Once you're done with the thermostat housing, put your idler pulley back on. Make sure you have that spacer. That is very important. Now that that's back on, I can feed my belt back in here, route it how I need to, and start reassembling. Got the wires all connected, got that bracket bolted on right there. Now I'm going to do the lower radiator hose. Lower radiator hose is on. Time to put the fans back in place. Fan shroud's back in. Now we can redo all these electrical connectors. You just press them until you hear the click. Now we can do the overflow bottle. Radiator's back on. Overflow tubes back on. Make sure to hook up the hose again. Connect all these little trees back to the fan shroud. Make sure to connect any of the connectors that you disconnected. So like this one I had disconnected just to get a little play in the wiring harness. Just make sure everything's plugged back in before you button this up. Got the bracket back on, and I did realize that I kind of bent that, so hopefully my AC is still good. Got both those brackets back on. I'm going to put on the upper and lower air intakes now. Got everything back on. All the little hoses and stuff are clipped into this intake. Radiator hoses on and everything. I still have to run to the store and get some coolant, and we'll have to run it and burp the system and everything. But I can put the plastics on, then I can put the battery tray in and the battery, and everything else will be done. Most of my clips for this top plastic were broke. I do have this kit. It's 102 pieces from Amazon. If the link's still there, or if this product's still there, I'll link it down below. But they've got all kinds of different little sizes of these. So I'm going to just pick a couple that fit, and I'm going to replace these. Plastic's back on. Got all these in. Put the battery tray and the battery back in. I'm going to put the bracket back in. Just slides under there, just like that. I'm going to have to take that bolt out. And we also have to do the rod first. So make sure to hook that into the little slot that's down there. All that's left to do is plug in the battery, but because it's unplugged, I'm going to go ahead and clean the terminals. They're not super dirty, but I'm going to go ahead and clean them really quick. And then I have to run to the store to get some coolant for this. I lost audio in the last few clips. What happened was I went to AutoZone, got Peak Asian Car, the red and pink coolant, 50/50 pre-diluted. I added it to the radiator, let all the bubbles escape, and I kind of pressed on the lower radiator hose to kind of push some of the air up and out of the radiator. Once the thermostat opens, it runs the coolant through the actual engine to push any air out of that. So once you stop seeing bubbles come out of the radiator cap, you are okay to go and close up the system. I forgot to record before I changed the alternator. It was reading 11.1 or 11.2 volts. So that shows me that the alternator was bad. Now that I started up, I have that 12 volt power system to run my dash cam and other stuff, but it shows me the voltage of the system, of the battery, and of the alternator when the car is actually running. It was reading 14.4 volts while running. The battery started off at about 12 volts, which the alternator wasn't charging it before I started it. Once I started the car with the new alternator on, let it run and stuff, it actually read between 12.6 and 12.8, which is what you want your battery to read when it's just in like accessory mode. Thank you for joining me today while I change the alternator. I hope this helped somebody and saved them some money from having to take their vehicle to the shop. And I hope that you all learned something.